Suck it,
Oh,
baby!
nice.
No, that's pretty funny. You know what the fuck I do? Hello, everyone, and welcome to an edition of Indie Heartbeat on this week's DreamHack Tonight. Today, we have a very special guest. They just released a launch title on the PlayStation 5 along with PC, and the game is Godfall. So I want to welcome him in a moment here. But Kyle, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing fantastic. This is one of those wonderful times of year that we're getting through, and one of the great games that we got to see with this push into the holidays with a new console release. So, really excited about this.
Awesome. Well, Kyle, thank you. A pleasure to see you. Especially, did you actually pick up any of the launch consoles?
Oh, no, I did not buy any this time around, man. This is 2020. I'm happy to have a job, so I'm going to wait a little while.
True. Hold on. Let me check my eBay listing. Up to 1,200 on the PS5. So,
I hate
anyways,
people like you.
I don't flip. I kept it for myself, of course, but it is insane. But anyway, so today we're going to welcome Dick Heyne. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great, man. Thanks so much for having me. Really excited to jam on some Godfall.
Awesome. And you are the senior technical producer for from Counterplay Games on Godfall, correct?
That is correct. That is the title they gave me.
Awesome. Well, real quick, how did launch go for you guys so far? How's everything?
It's been a blast. It's been surreal. I mean, we've been working on this project probably over 4 years at this point. So for it to finally be out in the wild, to see streamers playing it all weekend, I mean, I'm trying not to be too obsessive with it, but honestly, I'm being a little obsessive with it. Like, I think I subbed to like 50 different streamers. I've just been having so much fun watching people and celebrating the game and the launch. So it's been surreal. Like, once in a lifetime experience launching on the PlayStation 5, literally.
That's awesome. So tell us about yourself. And you did work on Duelist before this for PC. How did you end up at Counterplay, and where did the idea of Godfall as a launch title come to be?
So I won't talk about myself too much because I'm sure no one really cares. They really want to hear about Godfall. But my story is a bit of a bizarre one. So I guess the Spark Notes version would be, I discovered Duelist actually after launch. So I joined the team after they had kind of already shipped that. And I remember I was in grad school at the time, actually. And I was on, like the sites that sell PC keys, like all those. And I was on
games and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was on a Russian one. I don't know how I got here. It was like 3 a.m. and I was just desperate for a new game. I was like, I need something different. I don't care if it's not in English. It's fine. Well, whatever. I just need something new. And I actually discovered Duelist, and I had never heard of it before. It had been out probably 6 months prior to me discovering it. And I found out I didn't need to buy the $1 Russian beta key because it was free on PC. So I played that. I started making YouTube content kind of casually going through grad school. And that's how I met Keith Lee, the CEO of Counterplay Games. And at first, our relationship was just me begging for free shit and him sending it my way. Like, I was like, give me more packs of cards, please, for my YouTube channel. And we formed a really great relationship. I started hosting community tournaments for the game. He really liked kind of how I ran things. So eventually he's like, hey, you want to just like part-time kind of like do some contract work for us, host some of our tournaments? Your tournaments are way better than ours anyways. So I was like, sure, I'll join the team. So it was a very casual relationship at first, but Keith and I just immediately hit it off. We're very similar people. We have very similar goals and ambitions. And we just loved talking about games nonstop. And at the time, Counterplay was a much smaller studio. So we formed a really close relationship. And as we kind of got towards the tail end of Duelist and Godfall was coming to be, Keith was really eager to transition me. And he's like, hey, production? And I was like, dude, hell yeah, let's get into it. So that's really kind of my journey, the TLDR. And, early days of Godfall, it was... obviously a lot of people always like point out the transition from Duelist to Godfall is a pretty massive one. And it was really exciting for us to have such a big title like Godfall to be able to, in many ways, give a nod to Duelist. There are characters in Godfall that share names or share concept inspiration from Duelist. So it's been really nice to do that. But, for us, we just wanted to try something new. We sunk our teeth into Duelist for a really long time, and we kind of put our heads together as a studio and like, what excites us? What are we all playing right now? What's something that we really want to chase? And through many long conversations back when we were all still in the studio together, we essentially landed on Godfall.
That's great. Well, you answered my second question, so Kyle, take it away.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can expand on that second question. Then it's that style of game being so different. Were you guys confident that you could make that leap into from Duelist to Godfall?
Yeah, we were definitely confident. I mean, our team had a ton of experience at the time. I mean, Keith Lee has been around, back in his Blizzard days and Ratchet and Clank. I mean, he's just worked on so many incredible 3D console titles, and he's done pretty much everything at this point. So him being our leader, we felt really confident that as long as we kind of trusted his guidance, we would find our way in a lot of ways. And we had other people at the studio. Our lead character artist, Reggie Santiago, he was also he had worked on. Oh no, how embarrassing that I'm forgetting right now. But he's worked on a ton of incredible titles. I'm so sorry, Reggie. He's like an incredible character artist, but he's been in the AAA space for a long Titanfall. Thank you. My brain. Titanfall. Yeah. I can't believe I couldn't think of
one word difference.
Yeah. Damn it, that's Reggie's thing, I guess. He just works on fall titles. But we, like, between those two guys and a few other people, our lead engineer Colin, we had a ton of confidence going into this that we could kind of take on anything. And then obviously leveraging Unreal and then being able to tap into that engine was really able to allow us to jumpstart the project and get our hands on the combat and start working on that pretty much immediately, which was a huge benefit to us.
Yeah, speaking of that combat, there was a review I was reading while doing some research about the game, because I have not actually played this yet myself, but Games Radar described it as the most eloquently, I think I have read it, every blow lands with a shattering impact that just screams, eat shit and die, weirdly ornate Space Knight. Is that the aesthetic that you guys set out from the very beginning to design this game around? Because that's really cool when you read that sentence aloud.
I would say so to some degree. I think Space Knight might be a little bit leaning towards like the Destiny side, and that was definitely one area of inspiration for us. But I wouldn't say, Godfall definitely isn't just Space Knights. But yeah, I think that sentiment is fair. I mean, as far as the aesthetic for Godfall goes, a lot of credit has to go to our art director, Chris Ha. I mean, in my mind, Chris Ha, obviously I'm biased, but this dude is a top 3 concept artist of all time. Like, he's incredible. His vision and his sense for style and uniqueness is second to none, really. So he did a lot of the heavy lifting in the early days of establishing that aesthetic that you're talking about. And then furthermore, I mean, combat we knew was what we had to hang our hat on. We spent probably, just the first 2 years of production were really primarily focused on combat. I mean, obviously we were accumulating art assets, we were designing the game, we were working through the GDD, we were kind of getting like a sense of what the vision was going to be. We always knew that we always felt that Godfall was going to be a looter, but we wanted to make sure we did our due diligence. So we were like, let's create a really compelling combat system, and then we can experiment in a couple of different ways, see what feels best. But we knew that the combat we had to nail that. So yeah, I mean, that's what we were chasing from day one. Chris Ha's aesthetic and incredible melee combat. Those were like the two things we knew we had to hang our hat on.
With so many different games out there relying on the dragging you through to find loot at the end of the day, this game feels like it's progressing you through more of the mechanics of the combat and immersing you in the different styles of combat. So when you're talking about the combat around this game, that looter slasher style of gameplay is what it seems like you've landed on, and that seems like it was a direction from the very beginning. But outside of a Destiny style, what other games influenced you to get there?
Oh, I mean, a big influence for us, and we've talked about it a ton, is God of War. I mean, I think Destiny 2 and God of War are probably two of the studio's most played games, honestly. If you were went into all of our libraries and calculated hours, I would say that honestly, those are almost definitely our top 2 games, actually. There was this period of time where it was probably like a year and a half where at some point there was at least one person in the studio who was going through a God of War playthrough, and this was way after the launch. But we were just kind of constantly playing it, constantly going back for inspiration, and we were just so inspired by how incredible that title turned out. So I would say that was definitely a big inspiration for us. And then as far we knew one of our challenges was going to be, we were a new IP. And largely we were a new idea, this idea of a looter slasher, right? There's a lot of looter shooters out there, and there's a lot of hack and slash games out there, but there aren't a lot of great examples, and there are some. I don't want to kind of misconstrue this, but there aren't a lot of great examples of what is a looter slasher, and that was what excited us. We really wanted to try to create something new. I mean, that's always been a pillar of Counterplay Games, is we don't want to regurgitate. We want to create something new and experience that you can't get anywhere else, and that's what we were chasing with Godfall. And being a new IP, being a new experience, being a combat system that players have never experienced before, we knew it was crucial that they spent a lot of time with the combat before kind of getting to the end game loop and before they got to that point, because there's a lot to learn. I mean, it's funny. I was watching streams all weekend, and there are still things that players are discovering in this moment. I'm on Reddit and I'm reading through various threads, and I'm like, oh man, they're just finding out about that. That's so crazy. It took a week to get there. Not in a bad way, but in the sense of like, that's kind of how layered we wanted our combat to be. We wanted it to take time. We wanted it to be a slow burn, and we're excited as people learn more and more and play more and more. The videos that come out. I saw a YouTube video. I apologize. I don't remember the user off the top of my head, but somebody posted I think it was a Hinterclaw crit guide. And they're like, this is in my opinion, the best alpha Hinterclaw crit build that you can play. And it was so funny because I was reading through the comments and there were tons of people who were like, oh, watching you play Godfall is like a completely different experience. I had no idea I could do this. And when you talked about the skill grid and we talked about this, and that was so satisfying to me. And so it was such a great moment of gratification because I was like, yes, that's what we wanted. We wanted that discovery. We wanted that excitement for a new IP where it's like, oh, I didn't know you could do that. I need to get this right now. I need to go back into game. I didn't know you could teleport with a shield. I need to go figure out how to do that, and seeing moments like that on streams, on YouTube, all over the place is man, it's like the best part.
It's kind of like Hades. When I started watching other people speedrun Hades, I'm like, I didn't know that existed in the game. So similar feeling. So tell me, and one thing you have compared to the other games you were trying not to compare it to is you got to launch on PS5, right? They did not. What was there any more pressure releasing for a big console like a PlayStation 5 more than normal, or was your date already set, stuff like that?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was. I never felt personally like there was a ton of pressure or anything like that. I think it was a lot of excitement and a lot of just, we knew the big day was coming. Obviously we had a set date and we were working very closely with Sony and Gearbox, who were both incredible partners throughout the entire experience and provided a ton of support to make this possible. But no, I wouldn't say I felt pressure. It was just excitement and high energy. Obviously, there was some discovery. We were learning as we went along. But again, the folks at Sony did such a great job of, especially us being, kind of an up-and-coming studio, so to speak. They did such a great job just making sure we had everything we needed to be successful. They were timely when they answered our questions. I mean, I won't go into the nitty-gritty of it, but yeah, it was just an exciting time period. I would honestly say I don't feel like our team felt a whole lot of pressure, I guess, in a negative sense at all. It was just excitement for this big moment.
And did you and your team ever anticipate being like the title for the PS5 launch? Because when you boil it back to what came out as far as new content went, you guys were pretty much the new game to come out for the PS5 at launch.
That was an exciting discovery for us. I mean, that's not something you can plan for, right? It's not like we sat down 4 years ago and we're like,
of course,
PS5's coming out in 3 years and we're on top of it, right? Like that wasn't necessarily the exact vision. The studio's primary focus was, of course, just creating a compelling game, and then we trusted that if we did it right, if we did our jobs, then the rest would come and the cards would fall as they would. But as soon as the possibility of the PlayStation 5 came into the picture. And we premiered at the Video Game Awards. We were the first PlayStation 5 title to announce. I mean, that's definitely when quote unquote shit got real, right? Like I remember being at VGAs with Reggie, Keith, Emil, and many others, and we were just there in the audience watching it, and it was an emotional moment, honestly, for all of us. I mean, it was an experience, despite some of these guys having decades experience in industry. Like I said, launching on being a launch title in general is kind of a once in a lifetime experience in most cases. And then to do it on the PlayStation 5, to do it on such a unique piece of hardware that I don't know, it was incredible.
It's got to be a dream for sure. It's just incredible. Yeah. And you mentioned working with Sony, you mentioned working with Gearbox a little bit. Tell us how your relationship with Gearbox and Counterplay came to be.
Yeah, so I mean, we had been eyeing Gearbox for a while. I mean, like I said, we knew Godfall was likely going to be a looter from the get-go. That was really kind of what we were chasing and what we were most excited about. And I mean, when it comes to looter, who better than Gearbox in many ways, right? Everybody at the studio were huge fans of Borderlands. At the time, we were incredibly excited for Borderlands 3. We were like foaming at the mouth for it. We're like, oh, we need this. And then more recently, I suppose, Gearbox had an incredible successful launch with Risk of Rain 2 as publishers, and we were just blown away by how they worked with those developers and then what they were able to do. So all in all, it was just a partnership that we were excited about. Once traction started forming, we were just we were just impressed by how invested they were in the IP. I think that's maybe always kind of a concern or something that you got to look out for, is you want to make sure that it is kind of a match made in heaven, and that both parties can be equally excited about the IP and understand it too. I mean, Godfall is complex when you look at the lore and the design and all these different elements. I mean, trying to think about how to publish a game as large as that is absurdly complex. But because they had experience with looters, we knew this was going to be nothing new to them. They were so invested in the vision of Godfall. A lot of times they were pitching us ideas that we had already had. We're like, oh my God, we're so glad that you want to show weapons this way. That's exactly how we want to show weapons. You know what I mean? So, I mean, in a lot of ways, it just felt like kind of a match made in heaven. And if we could go back and do it over 100 times, we pick Gearbox every time.
That's awesome. And then, the feeling of the Game Awards, I was there the year that No Man's Sky got announced, and I was just blown away by it. And then obviously over time, everything got better with it. But very excited for you guys. It's just launched. What's next for the Godfall team that you can talk about?
Yeah, of course. Right. So, I mean, first and foremost, like I said earlier, like right now, what a lot of the team is doing is very similar to me. Well, obviously, we're all still working very hard, but we're also just consuming the content. We're listening, right? We've never had this many players playing Godfall during the development process. So there's just so much feedback and sentiment that's being thrown our way that we're really just trying to wrap our minds around it, organize the thoughts, just what the community is saying. So as far as next steps, I mean, we do have patches planned. Our top priority, our number one responsibility is always making sure that Godfall runs smooth, it performs great, the co-op experience is seamless, all of that good stuff. And as we continue to chew through that, we'll then be looking forward to digging into the quality of life issues that have been brought up and making sure that we can continue to push that and just making the experience better and better for players as time goes on. And then of course we have an upcoming expansion. And the objective for us really as we I suppose build the Godfall IP is just to continue to explore the world that we created. And there's this concept of the Skybreaker monolith in Godfall, and this idea of infinite worlds being captured in this structure. And what we loved about the original pitch for that, all the way back, 2 or 3 years ago when the idea was first brought up, is wow, that gives us a playground to do whatever we want and create whatever we want. And that was an incredibly exciting prospect for us. So really right now it's just listening to the community and looking forward to the future as to what we can do to make this the most compelling looter slasher on the market.
Well, Dick, thank you so much. Congratulations on the launch. When this airs, it'll actually also release over in Europe as well. So I'm excited for you guys there. But yeah, Godfall, guys, available on PlayStation 5 and PC. So if you weren't able to get a system, there you go. There's your other chance. But looking forward to the rest of it. Thank you so much for coming on. And thank you for tuning into this episode of Indie Heartbeat. I'm Alex Jebailey. Just as always, comment, like, and subscribe. Let us know what you think of Godfall if you've been playing it, and keep enjoying it. Kyle?
And I'd like to thank our sponsors, Simply Nuck, Blue Microphone, and Astro Gaming for your continued support of our shows.
Thank you, guys. Take care.